Prince Andrew, the thorn in the king's side. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The dynamic between Prince Andrew and King Charles is an interesting one. Two narcissists, albeit of differing styles, that interact with one another intermittently. One holds more power over the other in terms of status and financial firepower. Both are driven by a need for control. Both are driven by the need for fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. I have detailed the numerous instances of where the narcissism of both is on display, particularly in relation to Prince Andrew, who does not operate with a facade in the way that King Charles does. It's also interesting because, of course, they are brothers, and yet their narcissism manifests in differing ways. One, with an air of superiority, occasional flashes of annoyance, but largely a facade that stays in place, born by the knowledge of being king one day and now being that king. The other, with a rampant sense of entitlement, who is all bluster and belligerence, who does not operate a facade and simply does not give a flying fuck about other individuals as long as his needs are attended to. Differing styles of narcissism and provides us with a fascinating instance of when they clash, because Prince Andrew remains a thorn in the side of King Charles, and an article by Kate Mancy in The Times provides us with further insight to understand the dynamic between these two. Of all the storms that King Charles has weathered in his 2 short years on the throne, the Prince Andrew problem is one that refuses to go away. His presence is a repeated threat to control. Now the palace is braced for another lightning strike. A new dramatisation of Andrew's fall from grace is due to air on Amazon Prime later this month. The existence of this programme, of course, is a threat to the control of Andrew because it portrays him in a less than flattering light, but also it's a threat to Charles because it shows that a family member and a member of the royal family is embroiled in behaviours that, in a way, won't go away and remain that permanent thorn in his side. If Andrew thought the Netflix show Scoop, which covered the same ground, was unflattering, then I have some bad news for the Duke of York. In a very royal scandal, Andrew is portrayed by Michael Sheen as pompous, i.e. the haughty arrogance of the narcissist, deluded, again, delusion is found with the narcissist, and deeply unpleasant. Narcissists are deeply unpleasant. Simultaneously arrogant and weak, he is seen striding around Buckingham Palace, shouting expletives at the staff. Indeed, the first words we hear him utter are "fuck off" to a footman who dares to approach. And throughout the 3-part series, he continues to bark the phrase at any courtier who comes within 10 feet. Now, bear in mind, of course, this is a dramatisation, but the fact is, it will have been based upon a semblance of truth in the way that Andrew behaves, and it has been reported that he is brusque with people, that he is arrogant, that he is pompous, that he is dismissive. All things which are part of the haughty arrogance of this particular narcissist and the way that he doesn't operate with a facade. He doesn't give a rat's ass about who he talks to in this fashion because he's Prince Andrew, he's important, and you're scum. The article continues by explaining it is unnerving the way it trips off the tongue in a way that others might say good day. To Andrew, the dogs are little buggers. The Queen's esteemed press secretary is a little shit. And his loyal aide, Amanda Thirst, played by Joanna Scanlon, is a fatty. Notice the absence of emotional empathy as he describes everybody in derogatory terms. This is a man who has no prejudices. He dislikes and hates everybody equally and lets them know as he shoots those insults left, right and centre, which is a rudimentary fashion of asserting control over people by repeatedly insulting them, so that prompts a reaction, and invariably, of course, because he's Prince Andrew, they have to kowtow and show respect to him. Thus he's able to assert control whilst provoking people to draw fuel from them. Many viewers will remember Joanna Scanlon from The Thick of It, and here the Duke is just as sweary as that political satire's Malcolm Tucker, but far less bright. Is it any wonder that the King holds the view that in real life he cannot be seen to be financially supporting his non-working brother at the Royal Lodge, the vast estate that cost Charles more than £5 million a year for security and other living expenses? Royal Lodge, and Andrew living there, is a threat to King Charles's need for control. Not only does it affect his residual benefit of money, he's hugely wealthy and therefore he can easily afford £5 million a year, but it damages the facade because he seemed to support an individual who is deeply unpleasant and has been accused of engaging in unpleasant behaviour. The King has made it clear to Andrew, "Pay your own way or pack your bags and move to the more appropriate Frogmore cottage." Assertion of control, nullification of threat to control monetarily. This, of course, was the former home of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Andrew, for his part, is belligerent, which is entirely commensurate with the type of narcissist that he is. He won't budge, i.e., being ordered by his brother the King, "Pay your own way or pack your bags," is a threat to his control. Therefore, he refuses to move, but the problem is, he hasn't got the funds to pay his way. The new dramatisation, for which the Newsnight interviewer Emily Maitlis acted as executive producer, suggests that Andrew asked to add in his bizarre alibis after his infamous interview with Maitlis had concluded. Thus, he undertakes the interview, which, as you recall, he thought went damn well, which shows his level of delusion because it was an utter car crash of an interview, and that he sought to add in alibis thereafter, which exhibits his sense of entitlement. These alibis memorably included that he couldn't possibly have danced at Tramp nightclub with Jeffrey Epstein's victim Virginia Giuffre on the night that she claimed, because he was at Pizza Express in Woking, revision of history, and that he couldn't have sweated profusely on the dance floor because of a peculiar medical condition that meant it was almost impossible for me to sweat. He tried to link this to the trauma that he experienced as being in the Falklands War, and then, of course, a picture was unearthed of him sweating his tits off coming out of a nightclub where he was clearly tripping balls. The fact is that that was a lie and was the use triangulating people with a supposed medical condition in order to discredit a threat to control posed by Virginia Giuffre. There's one particularly excruciating scene in A Very Royal Scandal, during which Andrew travels to New York for a meeting with Epstein and essentially begs, pity play, him for cash to clear his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson's debts. Granting the money as a gift, the convicted sex offender, where he's asserting control over Andrew through financial largesse, tells the Duke it's gone. Fast forward several years, and the drama shows Andrew being told that Epstein has been found dead in a prison cell. He responds, "Is this good for me or bad?" That demonstrates the self-absorbed nature of the narcissist to a T. There's no concern about Epstein being found dead. There's no concern about what he might have suffered. There's no expression of emotional empathy. He immediately wants to know whether it makes him look good or whether it makes him look bad. Of course, this is a drama, and any dialogue from Andrew behind closed doors is imagined, but it is commensurate with the type of personality that he is. A disclaimer at the beginning of each episode reminds viewers that while the drama is based on real people and events, some scenes have been adapted or fictionalized and adapted for dramatic purposes. Yet many people will find it easy to believe that these conversations, or ones like them, took place behind palace walls, based upon what we know about Andrew, of course, and the way that he behaves. In another scene, the Duke is seen going the full Tonto after a call from his older brother, then Prince of Wales, who had found out about the Newsnight interview and was furious. Naturally, that damages the then Prince of Wales's facade, with his brother engaging in such behaviour, because it makes the monarchy as a whole look bad. He therefore hoovers his younger brother, who is a non-intimate secondary source in his fuel matrix, unleashing his heated, ignited fury against him. Storming through the palace after coming off the phone to Charles, Andrew shouts, "Calls me a fucking mummy's boy. He is the fucking mummy's boy." That is his own ignited fury, reacting to the challenge fuel that was provided by his brother. In the face of good advice, Andrew ploughs on, suggesting that, as the second fucking son of the fucking sovereign, if I want to go on telly and defend myself, I fucking well will. Not only is this profanity-laden outburst demonstrative of the fact that he doesn't operate a facade, it exhibits his heated, ignited fury and the sense of entitlement whereby he can swear as he likes, and underpinning the fact that if he wants to do an interview, he can go and do one. That war with his brother is now playing out for real. Charles wants to move him from his lavish home at Royal Lodge and into more humble digs. Andrew refuses to go. It is now so febrile that those closest to the king have called it the Siege of Royal Lodge. If Netflix or Amazon wish to provide a sequel, there would be plenty of material. Andrew is no longer an official working member of the royal family and hasn't been for some time, having stepped down days after the Newsnight disaster. He may well argue that this has no bearing on his status and that his lease for Royal Lodge remains good. For Charles, however, the Andrew problem matters now for the same reason that it mattered then. It is damaging to the firm as a whole. Naturally, the damaging nature of that affects Charles's facade, and also it is problematic because the damage to the monarchy as a whole is part of the extension of what the king is. Andrew may not see this, but the show's producers certainly did. Indeed, it is succinctly summed up in the drama in a scene where Edward Young, who was then the Queen's private secretary, is seen to say, "The bottom line for all of us is to ensure that this scandal never touches the monarch. The Duke is one thing, the crown quite another." According to friends of his, the king knows that it is not a good look to be seen paying so much to keep Andrew in the lifestyle to which he has clearly become accustomed. Sense of entitlement for Andrew, threat to control for Charles. While there is not public money at stake, the bill is paid from Charles's pocket, it is still a public sign of support for a man who was friends with a convicted paedophile and has never acknowledged his lack of judgment over that friendship, because, of course, Andrew does not see that he's actually done anything wrong. In the drama, Andrew is seen hosting lavish dinner parties, grandiosity, after days spent shooting, and having a table, complete with pristine white tablecloth, set up on the golf course, so he can lunch on Welsh lamb served by a waiter, grandiosity. By the end of the programme, he is isolated and alone. His aide Thirsk has been summarily fired, and little hope remains. The same is true in real life. His final shred of dignity may be taken away by the king, but he can't say he wasn't given fair warning. He will have to find a sizable income from a reputable source if he wants to maintain the lease on the property, which is owned by the Crown estate. Charles has already shown that this is no idle threat. He has declined to renew the contract on the Duke's 10-strong security team, threat to control, nullification of residual benefit, which comes to an end next month. Frogmore Cottage, however, lies within the Windsor security cordon and offers Andrew a low-cost alternative, which the king would be willing to pay. One way or another, Charles intends to have his way, assertion of control. It's not just a financial measure, but is said to be for the Duke's own good in the long term. Can Andrew really expect a future monarch to support him in such a manner? At which point Plan B, Frogmore Cottage, may no longer be on the table either. A friend of the king's said it can be done tidily or untidily. It can be done with grace and dignity, or it can be forced upon him. It's all rather sad. But as things stand, life at Royal Lodge is set to become increasingly cold and uncomfortable for the Duke. The only question now is when he will realise that he has become a prisoner of his own pride. Well, he won't, because his narcissism won't allow him to see that. By the end of the film, Andrew, sad and alone, is left to stare forlornly out of the window. I would suggest that that isn't actually an accurate representation. He'd be more likely to be ranting and raving. Those close to Charles believe it may now be a case of life imitating art, imitating life, if he doesn't take the help he is offered. Thus, an interesting report about how Prince Andrew and King Charles are locked in a battle of control, which ultimately King Charles will succeed in, because he is the one with the money and Andrew hasn't really got any. For now, though, pig-headed, arrogant, and intransigent, Andrew remains in Royal Lodge, seeking to stay there because the loss of it is the loss of a residual benefit, which affects his notion of pride and status, which of course is a threat to control, and therefore his narcissism causes him not to want to give it up, and for him to remain a thorn in the king's side. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.